Ready.
Ready? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get this meeting started. This is the meeting of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 1. Today's Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. It's approximately 2:33 p.m. I want to thank everybody for making time to be here. And although it's a short agenda, I think it'll probably take about at least an hour to cover updates and anything the board wants to discuss. With that, I'll ask Community Development staff to call roll.
Mr. Mia?
Present.
Mr. Castillo?
Present.
Mr. Navarro?
Present.
Mr. Martinez?
Present.
Mr. Ceballos?
Present.
And Ms. Alexander?
Present.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the items on the agenda. Minutes, approval of minutes for August 9th, 2022. Those are handed to you in your packets. Take a moment to look over them. Let me know once you're ready to entertain action on them.
So move, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved to adopt the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Mr. Martinez seconds the motion. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. We're on to citizen comments. These are, citizens are required to fill out a witness card no later than 2:45. I don't think we're at 2:45 yet, so you still have time. And can be found here at Chambers. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No more than 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of the issue. Speakers may not pass their minutes to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Is there anybody here to speak, make public comments?
No, we don't have any comments.
All right, that item will remain open up until 2:45. Moving on to presentation items, no action to be taken on these items. Item 5 is discussion on any downtown related effort or activity of Board of Commissioners. It reads, it should say Board of Directors interest or concern. So I added this item to give us as a board and also for staff, give us an opportunity to bring up any topics that maybe we discuss and then put them back on for action. Just so, and I think it should be a standing item this way. And also a suggestion that Ms. Alexander made, I think, is a very good one to make sure that we're keeping updated on anything that that may be relevant to any one of us. So appreciate that. So let's start first with the more formative presentation, then we'll open it up to the board for any.
Wait, are we not going to have it? Are we? Can we not say anything on number 5?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, because I thank you for writing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
I thought Rick was going to comment. Are you commenting or you're prepared?
No, I'm preparing.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. Solis is going to be number 6, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Since you were there, I thought you were actually going to start on something.
No, well, I'm ready now. Sorry, I was just trying to get it started up again.
Go ahead, Ms. Alexander.
Well, I just wanted to throw out there, right, that I know that we have 3 projects that we're already are ongoing and we're working on, but it's taken so long to do that. I'm hoping that at some point we could start talking about still entertaining and taking care of these projects, but also start talking about what will be next. And I'm hoping that we could do something connected to parking, and potentially, you know, a TIRZ can do that and potentially be part of the private component, right? That maybe works with the public component and maybe find some other private entity that might be interested in that. And also the facade improvements program that
Yes.
was not very successful, working with between community development and Laredo Main Street, I believe. But because of the way the monies were allotted, and it was very difficult to
It's the requirements, yes.
Right. So I'm hoping that maybe we could start to think about maybe using some TIRZ monies to develop a facade improvement program, because that would help a lot of property owners downtown and you know, spruce up some of the buildings that need that.
I agree.
Okay, that, and the other thing was the homeless, projects that are coming. I'm not sure if, that's a conversation for this board, but, at least we can be apprised of what's happening on that front.
I think maybe hearing from the folks that are working on that project to provide an update,
Right.
that would be helpful.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe for future agendas, maybe we could,
Yes.
look at that.
So if you've got some ideas of the parking, I know there are some very successful facade programs, projects or programs like Corpus Christi that we could model after. But on the parking, if you've got some ideas that we could put into some sort of a board discussion with potential action, that would be good. The one thing I would probably lean on Mr. Castillo on is, we haven't completely bidded all these projects, right? So we want to make sure we keep some cushion that will allow us to take in any variances in the proposals that they come in. But I do agree in that we probably have about $800,000 in new money, right?
That's correct. We have about $890,000, of which $157,000 is supposed to be reserved for future debt service payments.
Right.
So the net amount will be what's available. But we also need to make sure that we have enough funds in there in case we do want to go out and issue another bond. We need to have some funds available in there.
I mean, that's gonna be the decision, I think, critical one, whether we sit on it some more and wait to bond and do more, or whether we wanna parcel it out for things that are a priority now. So, you know, I vary depending on the day. I think that you could make a case for both strategies and both ways, both tracks, right? You sit on it and you bond it.
Right.
You may get more money out of that, more projects, but at the same time, you're trying to get people to come downtown. If you wait, they're not gonna come. So I think it's a matter of how we wanna proceed.
Yeah, and since it took us, I don't know,
It's taken a long
6
time.
years, long time, I said no, that we should at least start entertaining the ideas of what's gonna be next, especially connected to the parking. I am hoping maybe, we could get a presentation from after the parking study was created, that the city commissioned. There's supposed to be a parking committee, and since I have a parking ticket right here, I'm very interested in, knowing when that committee meets, and, you know, if we could discuss, you know, the parking is a holistic idea, it's not just one idea. And when I drive down Convent Street and every parking space, you know, connected to City Hall that's on that side of Convent Street is reserved for somebody, the parking study does show, you know, maybe there's 100 spaces downtown, this is a made-up number, and 55 of them are reserved for people that are connected to something. And so that parking study is critical for us to look at.
When is that gonna be completed?
It's completed, it's been completed for a couple of years.
Alright.
It's already done.
I don't think, Rio, and then I'll go after you, but go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I know the parking, we also talking about the part of the Plaza Theater, anything we do, the parking needs to be looked at it. So I know the Able City, they are looking at it, and eventually we have to build a multi-story parking, because the land is so expensive, we gotta go up. You can't just buy land and have surface parking. And so maybe we can combine those, because as I said, to be successful Plaza Theater, we have to address the parking issues.
Yeah.
If we're able to combine, not just resources, but also ideas, right, with other entities that are working to recreate downtown and make it a destination, I think that would behoove all of us. And there's starting to be more expertise, people that have, you know, been working on this idea, even though there's no concrete plan per se. Maybe we're getting closer.
And we would love to have a public-private partnership. If somebody has land, maybe we can come up with a partnership, we build it, we give them some parking, because we need almost a whole block. Because we do have a design for a parking garage, but it needs a whole block.
So this, I handed you all this bunch of 30 sheets of paper. It's a notice, reconnecting communities, and it speaks about facilities. So it's a two-step process. It's basically a grant that's out there. It's been out there for a while, it's been circulating all over, you know, our networks on our emails, but that facility could also be, so the first step is to get the planning money, and then the second step is to apply for a project. So I'll speak once we get our comments done on the opportunity here, because I think we ought to jump on it and be part of it, and then maybe we can materialize some money for capital off of this particular opportunity. Since we're kind of running a list, I think the other thing that's in my head has always been very important, and when you deal with homeless and when you deal just with tourists and even people that work downtown, restrooms, we really need to find a way to build some restrooms downtown that can be maintained, designed in a way that they can be easily maintained or as easy as possible. And also sometimes we think that being restrictive of people that don't take care of things is the best route. It's not always the best route, because then you eliminate folks that really need access from that opportunity to use the facility. So that's something that we really need to discuss and think through. It's not a new conversation, but it's, you know, if we're talking about dedicating our time and resources, that in downtown, that's one aspect that I think needs to be discussed. So I've got a running list here based on what has been discussed. I'll circulate that on an email to everybody, so everybody keeps notes ahead of the minutes, and then we can formulate as we go through this next few months how we want to proceed. I would, to me, the very important is to make sure we keep a buffer when we get these bids. You know, we've got this inflationary issue going on. We're not going to meet our numbers. There's no way. And Rick's nodding his head. He agrees. So we just need to be prepared to deal with it and maybe cushion it. And then to the question, so you're throwing out bonding, you know, that just something for everybody to think about, right? All of us together.
Just a comment, I guess, along with trying to do some new stuff, you know, I think it's important that we recognize things that are coming. Like we have a Thai restaurant that's being fixed up, and Radical, the coffee shop, that even though it's in the historic district, it's coming. The Zaragoza building in front of St. Peter's, there's been an investment there, but kind of keep that in mind as well as the things that we're trying to better. But there are people investing in the downtown area, and we got to keep that in mind, you know, to support that.
And people holding the fort too that need some help too.
Yeah, on that point, Mr. Navarro, one time we talked about the Pearl, and I was not insinuating that downtown Laredo would be the same as the Pearl in San Antonio, but downtown Laredo probably has as much to offer as they do in San Antonio. We just haven't developed the kind of working group that could work together to make that happen, and that requires a lot of private investment. Not, the public investment can't save everything. There has to be the private component, and once the private sector maybe starts to see that we're addressing the parking issue, the public bathroom issue, that's very critical, facade improvement opportunities for other maybe smaller owners to fix up their property. We really could, with those investments that are coming in, we really could make a big impact on the future.
Yeah, I used to be part of that committee. I don't think they've met in maybe since COVID.
What committee is it?
The parking committee.
Oh,
It was a subcommittee of the parking and then parking and traffic enforcement or parking enforcement committee. So I don't think there's been a meeting on it.
I can check committees, but.
Anything else that maybe y'all want to keep on a short list that we need to bring back? All right, thank you very much. So I'll take just a few minutes I missed adding this on the agenda for action because the submission for this grant is October 13th. So essentially, and I've highlighted in yellow the concepts that I think you all would be interested in reading, but essentially this is a grant opportunity provided by the US DOT, Department of Transportation, and eligible to apply, of course, are local entities, but including MPOs, who's become the lead for this application and putting together. Juan Bendive has for a while put out an email and a request for people to join. Laredo Main Street and myself, on behalf of the TIRZ, attended a meeting a few weeks back where we thought it would be a good opportunity to be part of this submission led by the MPO. It's a two-phase process. So you apply to get planning money. There is a match. There's a 20% match. They fund 80%, you fund 20%. They allow for in-kind, meaning that it doesn't all have to be cash. It can be time and effort from the participants. And it essentially, it's meant to connect distressed areas or areas that suffer some sort of economic blight and connect them. They call them facilities. They could be sidewalks, they could be roadways, it can be parking structures. They can be pretty much anything that is deemed an economic motivator, but also a connection, so to speak. So if you go to page 9 at the top, once you, so the process, basically you provide some sort of guide. It's a 10-page submission. It's not a very lengthy application. And DOT will work with you if you're awarded to determine what the best plan is for your community. There's an engagement process, and I think that's on page. So they are also very heavy on public engagement. Page 3 at the bottom, transformation. This program will advance innovative solutions to reconnecting communities through technical assistance, research, and study of communities divided by infrastructure, which is, again, in terms of our history, that's kind of speaks to our community here downtown. And again, it's one of these new grants that are out there with the America Reinvestment Act and other types of grants similar to that. Talking to Mr. Mendiva yesterday, he quite has not figured out what the request will look like, but it has to do with the match, of course, and I think he has planning money to match. Now, the city may want to expand, right, the scope. We're interested in downtown, but for those of you at the city department, you may choose that there's more to be planned and solicited. We're not going to vote on this today, but what I'm interested in is if we can get a sidewalk project similar to what we're doing, funded through this grant. We get the planning done, we put the project in, it's going to cost us 20%.
20%.
So that's the incentive with this particular grant. That's the thought process. So I would like to bring it back for action once you have an opportunity to read through this. There probably will be another meeting with Mr. Mendiva. Feel free to, we'll get you the invite. Feel free to join if you'd like. I don't know what the request is going to look like, Mr.
If I may,
Yeah.
do we have to have a planning grant, or we can apply the construction DOT?
You have to get the planning grant first, and I think it's a way for DOT to kind of control the aspects of what your requests are, the scope.
I know MPO, the money, those are federal money, so you cannot use the same federal money for a match.
It's a match.
So the match has to come from either us, if we get $1 million grant, or the city of Laredo or somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, one cannot use his money for federal match, use the federal money.
Right. So we'll have to work.
But I'll sit down with one and see. I know
Does
we
he have
had-
other sources that he could use,
No,
or it's all federal?
strictly federal grant.
Okay, so then our participation is even more important.
Yes, I guess we can, if board agrees that we want to participate, maybe $1 million grant, so it's a 200,000, we can do a quick, another meeting and we can vote on it. And I'll sit down with Juan and see what we want to do.
But if we participate with the 200, that means we get to use 800, right?
We get to
No,
use
or
$1
do we
million.
have- $1 million go,
Yeah.
okay.
But, now was in my discussion, I don't know that, do we need $1 million in planning? I don't think so. We need multiple $1 million for construction.
Right.
But not for planning. So the first part is the light part, right? Where you can go light on planning and then substantial on your construction request. Some of these monies, this is unique. Some of these DOT monies are usually planning. They're not implementation
For
projects.
construction.
So this will come back once.
If you want to combine, not the pedestrian, parking,
Yes,
mobility issues, so we gotta package everything together to
that's
make it.
correct, yeah. Yeah, so if you're correct that his sources are non-matching sources, then we're gonna be an important piece, as is Main Street with their, whatever match they can produce out of their in-kind.
I had a question about
Sure.
this. I do like the idea of just calling a special meeting if you need to act, if you need to get a decision,
Okay.
so we can look at this. But, Mr. Castillo, is Loreto College part of this TIRZ?
No.
So I remember way back, we approached them, and, that, you know, they were looking at how's it gonna help them. But it seems like that the bridge that goes over the Washington Street Bridge that goes over the railroad tracks is not very appealing to pedestrian traffic to the college. Correct? We don't see students walking over the bridge. So if we could connect that educational institution to our downtown, and if we could potentially do it through the neighborhood and then through the River Road, that could be a nice walk, and then it goes straight from the college to the outlet mall and beyond. I'm not sure if we could,
That's exactly what this is meant to do, to connect those kinds of separate infrastructure. The railroad has separated those two communities.
Right, so those are distinctly separate, and if we could make that a more attractive, not attractive, but a more,
Accessible.
Practical,
accessible and
accessible.
safer.
Safe, that's the
A
word.
safer walk from, let's say the outlet mall to the college, that back way through that neighborhood.
Right.
And through that historic wall, which is there. I mean, it's a nice little walk. If anyone would like to go with me, I will take them there. But long time ago, we had that idea, right, about how to bring the college traffic to the downtown without having to go over the railroad track. And that would be the way. If you,
Yeah, I mean, that'd be something to throw in here to see how we can.
and then we
bridge
could
that.
maybe we could approach the college to start participating in this opportunity.
That's right. Good idea.
And Mr. Chairman, the other thing, remember, to have MPO apply a grant, the MPO policy committee also have to approve it.
Yeah, so he's going to his technical committee today to get, I guess, concurrence, and then he's gonna present to his policy committee. And you all are, the city is already the fiscal agent, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe the other option will be if the policy committee doesn't agree, if we provide the match, maybe City of Laredo and TIRZ can apply together.
That too. Okay.
So we'll see how because policy committee is county, city, so
Right.
sometimes they don't see.
Yeah, it's
just
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right, so, just for your measure, I'll talk to Juan if he thinks we need to get a decision before our next meeting, and I have a conflict for the next meeting, October 13th, that I want to move up or move ahead, but we do need to act on this before the submission date, preferably the first week of October. But I'll talk to him after his technical committee and come back to the board on dates.
Because if the board doesn't favor it, then we can bring back before city council and maybe get council blessing, and I don't think we'll have problem. It's just the matching money. If TIRZ wants to provide the match,
When is the next city council meeting?
we have one on Monday, and then the October 2nd, no?
October 3rd.
October 3rd.
Okay, so that would be our chance. Okay. All right, very good. Thank you very much for that discussion. I think it was very healthy. And if you feel that you need to bring one of these items ahead, just let me know. We'll add it to the agenda. All right, action item is item 6, update status presentations with discussion and possible action by KCI Technologies and Able City on ongoing project design work timelines and related procurement. It's not really an action item, but I threw it in there in case you all needed some direction that the board can give that to you, but it's really just meant as a presentation, but.
So, good afternoon, Rick Solis with Able City, joined by Edward Ochoa from KCI. I have a couple of house cleaning things, or housekeeping things that I wanted to just go over real quick with you guys. First off, we've been talking about the website. We've developed a draft of that. I can kind of show you, it's real simple, or I can send you the link and you guys can kind of play with it and see what works. We kind of adapted it a little bit from the last time that we spoke. We can meet in separate, or I can show it to y'all now. I don't, if
Can
y'all.
you spend just a few minutes so that everybody
Yeah.
gets updated since we're all here?
Yeah, so, let me bring that up. So essentially what we've done here is, and this is still being played with, but, you know, I think the last comment we had was that it was a little too generic, is probably the right word to use. It's just not, it didn't have enough sort of images and pictures, and it was a lot of text, right? So what we've done here is we've just divided, you know, it's still the same tabs that we talked about before, you know, the about, the projects, the meetings, and the contact list, you know. But now we've sort of, you know, identified, added some photographs, kind of talked about the history of the TIRZ, as well as, you know, related documents and board of directors. Just real simple information. As far as the projects are concerned, you know, we've identified those, and these are just, we haven't updated any of these images. This is just for you guys to take a look at. But, you know, we talked about the different phases for the monuments, and you can click that, and it'll bring up, you know, the images that we've been showing everybody here. As an example, you know, we provide text. Same thing with the individual projects. I know they're called phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I know we've been going back and forth on that. But again, I just kind of wanted to get you a feel of what we've been working on. You know, Zaragoza, Iturbide Street. We have a section for meetings. This has a list of all of the current board meetings, as well as a link to every meeting. So from that one website, you can go to the webpage and get a, you know, all the way back to July of 2018. So it's just a way to provide the community with information that they may want. Again, you know, this is still being worked on the contact part of it as well. But, you know, we can link this from a city website, from the planning department, or however we choose to do it. But we wanted to still keep it simple, just provide the pertinent information, unless you guys think we should put everything there. I mean, that's sort of the topic of discussion, that I just wanted to kind of show you guys where we're at and then get feedback from you all. And if we can address this or get more feedback, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, so for me is, and obviously the media's taking the signage, interaction, and social media. The media outlets are picking that up, so I'd be interested in having a 1 to 2 page pager that's a PDF that we can say, hey, why don't you go to this link and download a small version of what is on the website, right, that says where did this start, where are we at, what the timeline looks like, and maybe through you all we can work to formulate that 1 pager, 2 pager, something simple that we can hand the media that we all feel is representative of where we are.
Now, the presentation that Laredo Main Street gave us that talked about all the analytics and the statistics of, I mean, is that something that we want to put on here just so that people can see that there was that amount of engagement on the project? Or, I mean, it's just, we're just sort of thinking.
For me, it's more about people knowing what the timeline is, what the projects are, what's coming next. I think that's the most important part, keeping people informed on those facts.
Okay. So almost like a schedule, you know, working schedule that has the elements.
so-
Yeah, we can generate that, and that can be sent out to different people.
I think simple is better.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Less is more.
Right. Great. Well then, the other item that I just wanted to touch base on real quick was the,
So Rick, when do we get to our first cut of the website when we go live? Can we do it within a couple of weeks?
yeah, I think so. I think we're close. We just need to put it out to you guys, get as much feedback as we can, and then we got somebody that's available that can just finalize it, and then we just need to decide how to, do we get our own domain? Do we just link it to the city website? I think those are still some of the parameters on how to do that. I don't know.
I don't have a
I'd
preference
like to
there.
link it to planning, yeah, if we
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah,
We do it.
well, do you think we need our own domain?
It's up for,
I would link it to the city, it's part of.
And actually, the domain, you can tell it to go to his website.
Yeah.
You know, you can have the domain, you know, when someone says TIRZ, Laredo TIRZ #1, it'll go to his website. you
okay,
know, so
and
that's
so
something
we'll
that-
just have to figure out a way to get that information over, and we can go.
And
from
then,
there.
because of that monument sign, people think that this work is Laredo Main Street. And so.
Right, exactly.
So, which is
Yes.
fine, you know. So I hope that the link could also be on the Laredo Main Street page.
Yeah, okay, we can do that as well.
So where's the spot to load all these presentations we've had over time where we've had meetings and iterations? Is there a page?
We can, under that projects page, we can kind of make reference to that.
Presentations,
Yeah,
okay.
we can add that in.
You
as well.
can space it out like phase 1 or preliminary and then.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have presentations that go all the way back. you
Yeah.
know, So
I
we
think
can
you
link
might-
to all of those.
I think you might have to break it down, like maybe your preliminary one, and don't give too much. Like, don't give all the ones because some of
Well,
them
because
someone just had little changes, right?
Because
But-
all of it is available in those videos.
That's
you know?
correct.
So I mean, we don't need to retell everything. If somebody is interested, they can,
Maybe that's
say, I
just
like
the
the idea
more-
about the one page,
We'll-
right?
the bigger
We'll
ones.
go through and identify kind of like the major elements or the major milestones that we've done throughout the years, and we can put those on there, because I think we've had a few.
The one that I share with people is the May presentation
Yes.
you made.
Yeah,
So
and-
when people ask me, I usually send them that one
Yeah.
because it's got it.
It's
pretty
got all
much
the
everything.
numbers, it's got like all the
Yeah.
current, it is missing the schedule, so we'll make sure to add that in.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I just wanted to, there was some conversation about the monument sign that was selected. We have, we're still working with KCI on the location for the monument sign. The location we've been showing, there's a power pole right at that location with primary wires that are running. It may not work.
Did you show a picture of the monument sign on the east side of the road?
No, we haven't shown that yet. So we're still kind of working through that with KCI.
Are you considering that?
Well, we can talk about it, yeah.
Oh.
So since it doesn't work here, we've talked about maybe even putting it on the other side of the street, where there's no wires. We've talked about increasing the islands around that corner to putting it there. We're still working with KCI on that. I just want to give you all an update on that. However, we've developed the images as well as the working drawings for that. We've been in contact with both community development and engineering on developing the bid document for that. I spoke with Ramon yesterday. I think we're pretty much ready to issue something out for bid, so we'll be issuing that out through engineering.
Look at the wall.
Okay. I did want to, this is our base option. We do have an alternate based on some conversations we've had, or some comments that were made by the subcommittee. One of the things was the digital sign component of it, as well as the historical aspect of it. Those are like the two main things that they liked from the other options. So we do have this alternate option with the little history component on the bottom, as well as the digital sign. It's pretty much the same sign. We just added a couple of elements. We figured we'll just get pricing on both, and because I think this will be more expensive because of the digital sign. If it's something we can afford, great. If not, we can kind of talk about it.
It's got everybody's preferences on there.
Exactly. So for the most part, it's pretty much the same. Just we added the digital
Can you
sign.
zoom in? What is that underneath the T,
This right here.
on the top T?
Oh,
At the top.
I just can't see
that,
it.
IT.
Can
it just
you?
says, it just says
It's,
it's this.
Oh, it says IT.
Yes, right there.
But do you have it set up so that the component, let's say at a later date, if we want to put it on, it just has its connection, so you.
We can do that. We can talk to the signage person about that. So,
So,
but our goal is to get it out to bid here as soon as possible. I'll get with Ramon, and then we'll contact all our reps, as well as there's an out-of-town vendor that's already been looking at this. We'd like to get numbers back as soon as possible so that we can get going on that.
30-day period, Tina, or Ramon? 30-day posting? Or is it less? It's 30 days?
So
It's
the only question is,
It's
my
a bond
question-
money, so it has to be at least 30 days.
Okay.
What is that at the bottom on the left with that circle?
This right here?
Well, that's the history, right?
Yeah, this
that.
is the digital sign that changes,
For events.
yeah.
Is that, how big, who's gonna see that?
Right now, it's 4 foot in diameter, so it's,
It is 4 foot.
Oh.
yeah,
That's pretty big,
yeah.
4 feet.
Yeah, the scale, you know, this sign is 42 feet tall.
How
so
far is that from the bottom, from the floor?
it's probably about 10 feet, so that no one can hit it or.
Oh, okay, so it is way up there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
okay. And
so,
who's showing us this? Is this the pole? Tina, are you showing us this?
Yes.
Oh, sorry,
This-
I didn't realize this was
Yeah.
Good
like
idea.
Yeah.
This 180280,
That's what's in the
That-
corner right now.
that's, okay, so this would be competing with this?
yes,
And, but can you show us the east side of the street, please?
Oh, over here?
Yeah.
I don't know who, right there?
Well, if we had it, well, I see that little casitas in the way too. If we had that sign on the east side of the street, the people, all the traffic that's going across the river and also coming off the highway, is a little bit hidden where that pole is.
Mhm.
After you come off the highway, you still don't see it, if it's on the west side.
right.
And I don't know how, I think maybe putting it on the
How
east
tall
side.
did you say it was gonna be?
About 40 feet.
Be 40 feet,
So there's still.
maybe up there.
The pole is 30, Edward?
I'm sorry?
A pole is 30 foot?
The pole in that area is probably about 30 feet, yeah. The primary lines run on the west side of Santa Úrsula, north and south. So we need to be minimum 10-foot clearance from the primary. It's AEP and OSHA's requirements.
So it's gonna be 10 feet under the power line?
Away from
No,
it, separated.
Away from
Oh.
it. Well, you need to be 10-foot clear radially from the line itself, right? So you can be 10 feet under, 10 feet to the side or whatever. But in the case, this is 40 feet, so, you know, we need to be 10 feet.
How high is the power line, do you know? Can you estimate?
We haven't measured it, we need to go back and measure, but probably about somewhere between 25 and 30 feet, I think.
Oh, so it'll be above the power line?
The top of the pole will be above the power line, yeah.
It'll be taller by 10 feet,
Yeah.
12 feet.
Can we relocate that pole to the other side of the street?
You can relocate anything you want.
As long as you have.
You gotta pay for the pole, it's
Yeah,
probably
so
$1,000.
AEP, we've talked
Yes.
about that, that's
Yeah.
been certainly part of our discussion. Looking, I mean, in this particular case, it's a primary line that runs north and south, and it runs way further north and way further south on Santa Úrsula. So, you know, either we take the whole thing and go like this, or you dogleg it, but we need to have that discussion with AEP. We're trying to find a more cost-effective and quicker solution.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so that we're not really diving into that, but
Tina,
that's always
Can
a
you turn
possibility.
So,
Can you
just a quick question.
Did you say that you
You're saying that this
considered the east side?
We've talked about that with
More.
Able City, yes.
That?
We can't put it on the other
Here,
side.
I
I'll,
think
You have a view of
yeah,
the east
I'll
side?
go over
Oh,
there.
he's
The
showing.
east side has,
What about right there?
some challenges also.
I'm gonna
The east side, like in the trees?
It's because this is how you see it on these sides.
What exactly is that spot right there?
This right here,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
so
So-
is that belong to the city?
It looks like the federal.
It's,
There's a
Is
drain
that a
there.
parking space?
It's a booth.
it's kind of like a turnaround, I don't know how it originated there. It looks like it's a turnaround for the booth.
Thank you.
In the times that we've been to the field, we've seen a vehicle parked there, maybe CBP uses it or Customs or whoever, and maybe they park there to get to that booth, I'm not quite sure, but,
Is that city property?
Right away.
yes, I mean, not exactly sure if the right-of-way is at that low block fence line or not, it might be kind of in between there, so I would say
Maybe,
probably some's in the right-of-way and some is not.
maybe if we did a concrete base there and then put the sign on top of that, on that, right there.
So, yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about is, you know, we've looked at that east side. You know, placing it maybe right before the
Yes.
turn. but that, you're already about 10 feet from the intersection this way. So, how far this way do we want to have the sign? Do you want to have it this?
47 feet.
Huh?
It's 47
Well,
feet. It's not,
In height, yeah, so.
it's huge.
And then the other part of it too is,
Which way?
go back to down the street. So over there, down on the back end, that little teardrop kind of lines up back on that back end. So you see there's a sidewalk, there's a secondary pole that's bringing power to the booth. So, we looked at maybe placing it there, but you're already kind of past the
You're already
intersection
past
too. I mean, that's a
yeah.
possibility also.
Would need to be
Right,
ahead, like
in
Rolando
front,
says.
however many feet you said probably is not a
there,
issue.
yeah.
You know,
Right
if
there
you-
is, yeah.
That's probably the most ideal place, but we might need to do some homework on
Right away.
If there was a purpose
Yeah.
for it.
Again, certainly it is the right of way partially, but, there might be a portion of it that's in federal property, maybe the back end of the teardrop. I don't know how we can go about,
We just need to work on
fixing that.
So have you considered like in front of that tree, that, even though it's not exactly lined up with the street, it's still, it's gonna be so giant, if you see it, I don't think that,
And there's no turning left, so. I mean,
right.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So
like
the
you know
next
where it
street.
is. Yeah.
And maybe in that grassy area, there's some opportunity.
That's probably the cleanest.
Who owns it? That's the question.
That's the question.
And it's well kept, so.
Federal right away. Everybody federal.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can look at placing it, we've had those discussions already.
All right, so you'll keep us posted.
Certainly, I mean, Rick was probably open to some input from the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Edward, you'll find out who, from
Yeah, let me.
your survey
we'll-
info, right?
We'll do some investigation, yeah, I mean, on our survey info, we'll do some investigation to find out exactly where that right-of-way line is. Certainly not the back curve, so
Yeah.
it's somewhere halfway in between that teardrop.
For bang for your buck, you're gonna get all of the, I mean, on the east side, you'd get all of the, it'd be more visible. I know it's gonna be tall, but you'd get, more visibility on that side.
Yeah, you'll see it down I-35.
Yeah, it'll be like right here, sticking.
And it'll look like fun. When you're leaving Laredo, you're missing out.
Yes, there you go. That's a good
Good point.
point. Yes.
Good point.
So, with that said, we'll work on that. We need to get with Edward, because Edward's got a little bit of work on the monument side to do the, kind of the site civil around it. But, as far as the signage itself, we can get pricing on that. I do want to report that, Able City and Casey have been meeting on the, now that the surveying is done, we've gone through and started digging in, kind of rolling our sleeves up and just making sure that, that Edward understands all of the design ideas and concepts that have been done over the last few years, get implemented. He's brought up some good points. Overall, just in a general overview, we think that the work that's going to be done along San Agustin and Iturride is fairly easy in the sense of there's not a lot of grade change there. Everything's pretty flat. So we'll show you some site sections that KCI has developed on kind of what that's going to look like moving forward. We can always decide on how wide to make we've talked about 6-foot minimum sidewalks and then trees and the little bump outs and at the corners, those are things that we can navigate and probably need to have a formal meeting with whoever on the board wants to look at this to really kind of, yes, this is what we want before these guys get going, and then also before we approach the public engagement portion. I think we all want to get on the same page. The street that I think that is going to present the most opportunities, I should say, is Zaragoza, because there is a lot of grade change. We've walked it. We've been looking at it for the last couple of weeks. It's going to be tricky, and so I think what we want to present to you guys today is, we get to a point and we say, well, we can do this 3 different ways. Which is the way that you guys prefer? Because there's sort of pros and cons to each, and I think that's kind of the feedback that we're looking forward from the board. So I'll start there and we can kind of, I have the Google Maps set up so that we can kind of flip back and forth because I think really you kind of need to see it to be able to understand it. So,
So you're saying Zaragoza is providing your best opportunity to be creative?
correct, yes, absolutely.
You turned it really positive, thank you, Rick.
So, you know, these are the sketches that we've been showing, you know, along Zaragoza Street. And, you know, this is the block between Salinas and Convent, which is probably the fun, the most fun block, right? In working with KCI, and I'll let Edward kind of chime in here, but we've kind of developed a section here because if you look at this street, especially here at this corner, and what I'll do here is I'll go to that corner so you guys can see it because I think that'll explain it a little bit better. Let me go there. It's right here. Oh, I went too far. This thing gets stuck, hold on. It's here. Edward? No, is it there? No, it's one more block over, right?
That's it.
But it was in Convent, that was.
That was
You're
it.
at Convent there.
Yeah, that's 180. That's good, right?
Yeah, right there. So,
There you go.
that,
Yeah, that's it. Just about
okay, yes, right here,
Or
this side,
downstream.
yeah. So I know we've talked about one side versus both sides. Right now, we're sort of just focusing on the north side of the street. And, you know, we have these steps that are leading into stores. Further down, you have this ramp that is not ADA, you know, it's like, it's a kind of a mess, right? So, the plan that Edward developed is, and I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure, I mean, we kind of
Okay.
developed some of the concepts together and then.
So, you can kind of see from this idea, we're extending the curb out. Essentially, we're creating a sidewalk outside of what's the current sidewalk that's there. And using the concepts that we have in the comp plan as far as the sizes of streets and the sizes of parking, we left this curb line alone on the south side. We gave an 8-foot parking space, and then we left an 11-foot drive aisle. And then what was left over, that's where the new curb is going to be able to create that sidewalk. Conceptually, what we're doing here is we are putting the pedestrian away from the building. And then as you walk through here, we introduce either a ramp or steps up to those businesses. They're a little bit more creative as far as what we don't want is guardrails everywhere. I think there's some concern about what was done in front of the outlets as far as that concern is, and I understand that if you do it that way, all that guardrail is necessary because you have grade changes in heights, but we're trying to mitigate some of that. We have a ramp that comes all the way down from the street coming up, so yeah, you'd end up with a guardrail or a planter or something, which is not ideal, right? Conceptually, we talked about as an option, well, do we really need this ramp, right? Because there are no storefronts along here. This was just a way to get you from this point up to where the storefronts are at this location. So the other concept we had was to run the handrail vertically as opposed to horizontally, and maybe you don't have this ramp there anymore. And as you're walking through, you can either, you know, if you come out and you're in a wheelchair, well, then you just kind of have to go around to get around. But you're not having to go down this direction. So, you know, conceptually, those are the kind of the things that we're looking at that we need for, you know, how much handrail is too much handrail? How much ramps is too much ramps? Does everything need to be ramped in terms of getting in and out of these businesses? Are we okay with having steps and little handrails? You know, so that as you're walking, there's going to be a handrail because you need a handrail for the step, but it's as you're driving or as you're walking on the street, those handrails are perpendicular to you. So you're not just seeing this long rail along where you're walking. You know, what we've done here, there's some other things that we're having to look at mitigating. There's an existing drain inlet, curb inlet at this location right there. We talked about relocating it, but that's very expensive to relocate that curb inlet. And then the other thing that doesn't help is that there's a sewer line that runs right over it. So we don't really think we can move it. So then our idea was to run the curb back to that, leave the inlet where it is, and just try to mitigate some of those things. These are kind of like the fine detail things that we're finding now. There's a power pole right at that location there, so.
That's a sewer manhole, sorry.
Or, sorry, sewer
Sanitary sewer
yeah.
manhole.
And then there's a power pole on this side, right?
The
Somewhere over
power
here.
pole is further,
It's
yeah,
right
right
there.
there. Yes, sir.
So we, you know, from the renderings that we showed, you know, we have these nice trees coming through here. But what's not shown here is the curb inlet or the manhole or, you know, so we're getting into the details, which is what we want, right? And so that we can present that and we're all on the same page as far as that's concerned.
Let me ask a question, and I guess I'll direct it over here too. What are the chances of closing the street for pedestrian walking? And I'm just saying that because I know you have some properties in the area. Because it seems like you have the steps for the store, and then the railings, and there's so many different things, but that particular street might lend itself to close down and just be a pedestrian kind of area, and it might help the situation that you're dealing with. But I don't know, what do you think, Bebe?
Well, I know at first I was horrified at that idea, but then the more I've, over the years, looked at that and heard about that, and I guess when they did the comprehensive plan, they had some, one talk about how that would be beneficial, and of course, that would make a walkway.
Maybe a couple of parklets out there,
From-
you know?
I mean, I'm not sure, but
I mean, I think conceptually that's a good idea, but there's,
Or you still gotta look into
I
it.
mean, you're talking about traffic,
I was gonna
traffic
say.
analysis, because
But is there?
everybody comes, traffic comes down, is it Salinas, right? The one further west, so everybody comes down Salinas,
They can't go anymore.
and so either you go straight into the outlets, and that's already blocked, so the only way out for them is to go, like if they wanna come back to town, they go down this street and then turn on Convent and go up north. So,
That's the only traffic you get on that.
correct, so, but I think, there might be some reconfigurations of the downtown streets, right, to allow for traffic to go in different directions. Certainly, I think that's a conversation that can be had, but I think, it's a conversation with some other different departments to find out how we can best do that.
And I think really what we're looking for is creating the parameters, right? Like, we didn't even think of that because we didn't think that was an option on the table. I mean, if it is, well, then we can consider it. But what we want to do is kind of create the bumper rails, right? Because we can go in any which direction, and we want to get focused so that we can get to the next step, so that we can get him going, release CDs, get it bid out, get it built. So, so that's kind of like why we're coming to talk to you guys about this.
You're a direct stakeholder in.
I'm a direct stakeholder right there. And there's another direct stakeholder in the room that came to, my brother not here, Vicky.
Gene?
I'm just thinking about this, there's some taxis in that corner too, and they might have issues because they're lacking. I just want to say that.
They're what?
They're lively.
Yeah, so we've accounted for that, if you go back to the slide,
Which one?
that same slide.
This way.
Rick and Edward, so, I mean, there are midway points between closing the street and reducing traffic on it, right? So where you have less parking, and I think maybe studying that would be good, and engaging the state people that are gonna be directly impacted there.
Yeah, so the discussion that we had with Able City when we started with some of these talks was, like, as Rick mentioned earlier, the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan talks about, in some of these, they call them local street, main street sections. In the local street, main street sections, it talks about the lane width. Yeah, I guess we can go to that. I think I got this towards the end, I think.
See, that's what I mean, because that's gonna give you some constraints.
Right there. So that, what you see there on the left is straight out of the City of Laredo Comprehensive Plan. So the local street, Main Street concept is, you see it down in the bottom left there. And it's kind of hard to see, but their recommendation there is 10-foot lanes with 7-foot parking spaces. And so in our discussion, and of course that's a concept with a whole different, you know, section scenario maybe. In our particular case, you know, right now, this section of Zaragoza operates, there's only one lane of traffic coming out of it. Because the other lane is for the
parking,
taxis.
yeah.
The taxis use that lane. So if you see that dark stripe in there, what we're looking at doing is striping that off, and that'll be kind of like what you see in other cities, Houston or whatever, like a bus-only lane or whatever. That'll be striped off, and it'll say taxi-only lane or loading, taxi and loading zone-only lane. So that's what that would be for. And then the traffic would travel through that northern part of it, which we have designated to be 11 feet. We're trying to give it a little bit more room than the 10 foot from the comprehensive plan. And so by putting the 8 foot and then the 11 foot, that's kind of how we develop that section. And then the rest of the distance would be widening the sidewalk. So we've taken that into account.
So question, with what your initial concept here, you've got some railings, but they're currently perpendicular, correct?
Well, this particular one, this ramp that's here would have a big railing along the ramp.
But you know, you put a ramp there, and because at this moment, there's not a storefront facing Zaragoza.
Right.
But if you put a ramp there, you really are creating you're minimizing the opportunity ever to have a different kind of store there.
Yeah, it's let's see, where is it?
Right there. Keep turning. No, the other way.
No,
That's
this
it
right
right
here.
there.
It's this right
Yeah.
here. So right now you have this corner right here. And so what they were showing was a ramp starting about here, ramping up to that step that's down here. Now,
A ramp with a railing
yes.
and
no,
the trees. So it would be,
Yeah,
it would be sidewalk, railing, trees.
yes. So
Sidewalk, railing.
so
sidewalk
the trees are out here, the sidewalk is here, and the ramp would be
Go
here.
back to that cross section there.
So you're essentially meeting ADA by the second sidewalk up front, right?
That is correct. That's how we're achieving the ADA.
If you look there, can I point here?
Yeah.
Yes. If you see kind of the mouse here, this concept here was, you know, the ramp would be right here. And then you would have kind of a second level sidewalk adjacent to this between the trees. And so this would be kind of like your normal pedestrian walking path, right? And then if somebody wants to get up to that upper level, again, because of the varying differences in foundation, if you wanted to get into that upper level or get to one of those businesses, then you would come up the ramp and that would put you up at this level.
How similar will that look to this? This is a picture of right across the street from the outlet mall. How similar would that look to this project?
I mean,
That one, may I
Yeah.
take a look at that? I think that one, mostly what you see on the outlets is the railing.
You can put it on the overhead.
Yeah. The railing on this one, the railing is right up on the curb. In this particular case,
it's set back. You can see it.
oops, sorry.
It's very sensitive.
So in this particular case,
Yeah, it's
the
one
driving,
way
the
east.
driving traffic is right here. So where the vehicle is driving, you have the buffer of the tree, the buffer of a sidewalk, and then you see the railing. It's gonna be much further back in from the roadway.
So from the, of course, I'm just looking at this for the first time, and it takes a minute to kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
orient yourself.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing there looks very similar to what that, of course, without the tree and.
Yeah.
But the idea would be a
So-
raised, elevated platform with a railing. So keeping someone from walking straight into the store, right?
Well, it's just in this section right here. where you have the storefronts,
But, you know, that's an important section because that is where the pedestrian traffic comes
Right.
from the bridge. And I'm not minimizing how important the pedestrian traffic was in front of the mall. You know, it's equally maybe more, more so. I'm not minimizing that, but that sounds like it's gonna look very similar to what's in place.
What, if I may kind of interject on
Can you
that?
put that, is there any way we can show that photo?
I disconnected this.
Oh, okay.
You can go to the,
Actually, yeah, we can, let me do that.
Google.
Let me,
Oh, yeah, it's right there.
for sure, the railings
I think
can be
that,
improved in terms of just the look of the railings.
There's several, so we wanted to show some different sections because there's several different options that we can consider.
The railings
In
are
that
just
particular case, we can consider.
round pipe railings.
Similar to that one. We passed.
I'm not sure the railings are there in
Keep
these
going down.
photos.
Yeah, no, I saw them, they were there.
Yeah, maybe just.
There you go, keep going.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you see right there, you've got the vehicle and then the railing is immediately next to the vehicle.
so this is what you're talking about, this right here.
Right, but you'd said that there'd be the lower
So-
sidewalk, then the tree, and then the
It
upper
almost-
It
sidewalk.
would
It'd almost
basically
be
look
like that.
like this.
It'd almost be
Where,
like that.
where you'd have your sidewalk, but instead of, in our situation, instead of running the the landing for the business all the way out to the edge, we would stop it here and you'd have steps down. So you wouldn't have any of this handrail at the street. Now, saying that, I think it's important to note, if we decide and we say, you know what, like you were saying, like this ramp takes away from that elevation on that facade of that building, we don't need the ramp. As long as we're okay knowing that the people that are coming to this business just have to go, that are in a wheelchair, not pedestrian.
Not everybody, yeah.
So it's not everybody. They just need to kind of come back uphill, so to speak, to be able to go downhill this way. And then that gets rid of this rail, gets rid of the ramps, it cleans that, and then you end up with a larger sidewalk there. But again, conceptually, we just, like I'm saying, there's like 2 or 3 ways we can do this.
I think I'm gonna do some homework in Google Earth and look at other downtowns that are walkable, and I'm not sure how many of those railings I'm gonna find in a walkable city.
One thing to be mindful of when you do that is there is quite a bit of vertical difference on Zaragoza. If you stand on Convent and you look towards the outlets, it's relatively steep, it's not flat. So when when we're looking at designing these vertical changes and you're looking at designing handicap ramps, ADA ramps, when we're doing the ramp going uphill, the road is going uphill and you're going uphill and you can only go 8%. So it takes longer to meet that grade again. So
And it goes uphill going west?
it goes uphill going west, yes ma'am. Yeah, it goes uphill. Go back, if you can go back to the Google
Sure.
Street, please, where we were. Yeah, you might not get the full effect of it there, but when you stand out there and then looking at the elevations, that's dropping, Zaragoza's dropping.
So from the mall to La Posada, you're going downhill?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. The lowest point is Convent. So Zaragoza comes down to Convent, and then if you look at the other section back to La Posada, it goes back
Starts to
up.
go up.
So everything kind of comes to Convent, and then the water runs down to the river down Convent.
And this flatness, so is it my understanding that when they redid that street in front of the mall, they lowered it?
In front of-
I'm
in
not
front of the
quite
wall here.
sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure what they did on that, if they lowered it or not.
So can you raise a street?
Carl, that's.
Well, I just, the one thing is,
Anything could be done.
yeah, we gotta think outside the box, because what we're looking at is pipe, that it just doesn't look appealing, but, I mean, bollards of some sort, something that looks a little bit more, has a design to it or something, instead of just pipe.
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly.
And so there's.
If we have to do that.
If they're required, I mean, well, they are required, but we can, like, you don't need to have a railing, all you need is something to keep you from falling over, right? So if you can build a little planter or something.
In some areas,
right.
some areas you do need railing. If you have a slope steeper than 5%, so that now you get into the ramp situation, then you need, ADA says you have to have handrails.
But it could be
Handrails
ornate.
could be
Decorative.
decorative, absolutely.
Yes.
They can be any design, they don't have to be aluminum or you know, cast iron looking pipe. They can be literally any design, as long as they meet the standards of the handrail type, diameter, height, you know, ADA kind of calls out for that.
So
But those are only in areas where we need.
Would it help to do a walkthrough and kind of with the
Sure.
stakeholders that are maybe available and kind of run through what you
Yeah.
have? And
I honestly think that we're at a point now where we need to sit down with you guys, you know, probably, and like, just like we did, we rolled our sleeves up and we went through all of these different scenarios. So I think we have a pretty good understanding of what we need to do. Now it's just a matter of what you guys want us to do. Because I think, like I said, I keep mentioning, we can do it any number of ways. And obviously we don't want to make those decisions unilaterally. So we want to make sure we get.
It sounds like we gotta decide
Yeah.
which way we're gonna.
Yeah, and we do need to go out there because that's not just, it's not just aesthetically displeasing, it's a barrier
Right,
to business.
I agree.
It's a barrier.
I do
Yeah.
not like the ratings.
Yeah,
I mean,
so if we could
absolutely.
get creative,
So it's just a
this
matter
is your
of-
chance, right?
Yes, I understand.
This is your
You know,
chance. No
That's
pressure.
why I was, when we were talking, I'm like, well, let's just get rid of the ramp. That way we get rid of like a huge section of railing. Now, we have that same issue down the street, where.
Yeah, further down the
Is
street is not as easily avoidable. I
Yeah,
think.
you see how we have this here? So the idea was that we bring, you see this kind of, this lighter area?
walkway.
That's the walkway, you know? We're gonna
That
bring,
is used as a walkway by people that don't want to go up and down on the ramp.
so we're gonna extend that.
all the time.
So my son, who will be 35 years old this week, when he was a young child in a stroller, I was walking down that road just the same way it is now, totally inaccessible.
Yeah.
With the cars.
So the idea is that we're gonna extend this, I mean, you have your 8 feet here, you're gonna have your 11 feet here, and then this sidewalk's gonna extend out to about right here. So now this is the pedestrian path, it's,
So it's already kind of established itself,
Yeah,
is that, like?
right. The
Correct.
question, the issue is that you have this storefront, which is higher than that, you have this, which is really high. We're not quite sure what's behind this door here. My preference, actually.
And then you have that
And
other
then you
one
have
right
this other
there.
one right here. So, and then you have to jump back down to get to this level, which is lower than that, you know? So again, this is the one with all the opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So,
Just shave all that,
so,
make it all flat.
right. I think the best way to handle it would be to just try to minimize the ramping wherever we can, elevate them, have steps. Maybe we do end up with a ramp on this side or something. That's what we're trying to kind of work through, and we'd like, you know, we can walk it with you guys and really get a sense of it and have those frank discussions about how we want to do that.
Can we do that in the next couple of weeks or?
We can do it as soon as you guys want, is it?
Absolutely.
Because I think this is,
Right, Wednesday.
this, like I mentioned, and so I know we're running a little on time, but I would say, just to kind of show you.
We have a second section.
Yeah, so this is the
Yeah, that
section
one.
here, and then this is the section through the street. You can see we have that same step here. This sidewalk is this sidewalk right here, and then we have that
That's
step
the
up.
new one that we're pushing out.
Right. Again, here he's showing a rail because of that step. Now,
Well, the rail could be located, the rail needs to be located where you have a ramp, because you have to give that ability to give that assistance going up a ramp. But then when you get up to that top landing, you don't necessarily need a rail, but if you don't have a rail, you've got to have a barrier that keeps somebody from falling over.
right.
Right?
So we've talked about,
It's kind of a mix of concepts, a
you know,
mix of ideas that you can use there.
and so my idea here was to not have so many ramps. Let's just find an elevation that works, and maybe we can ramp at less than 5% where we don't need the rail anymore. And, you know, we're working through that right now. With, as far as San Agustin, you know, we've talked about what we want there. I think we want to make it as walkable as possible. I think that's what everyone's been saying. You can kind of see the section through here. we're gonna just, basically, this line is the existing surface, we're just gonna flatten it out. Obviously, there's gonna be a cross slope because the buildings on either side of the street don't match. So we're having to kind of mitigate that, but luckily we have planners there that are existing that we wanna keep. And planners are really good at helping you make those grade changes where you need them,
So this section that you see there is the southern block of Santa Ursula, so San Agustin, south of Iturbide.
So
Okay, so this is where the city, the diocese parking lot is to your.
So Aldrich
on the
Tangent
top of the
Park.
picture.
yes, Andrew looks.
Yeah, So in this particular section, in that particular section there, that's where we only have the building on the west side. And so the current street actually grade-wise kind of slopes towards the buildings. And then you have a couple little steep drop-offs that way. So the idea there was to kind of reverse the slope and push the water towards the parking lot side to the east. Because in reality, that's where there's a little valley gutter you can see in that section between the planter and the sidewalk over on the right, the other side.
Oh,
right there.
Right here,
No, further to the right.
this, right there.
Right there. There's a little bit of a valley gutter that's already built in there. And that water going both north and south, the curb inlets are on that east side anyways. So if we push that, that'll make a walkable path literally from the foundation all the way out to the.
Is the little water gutter going to remain?
We can work through that, but we've got to give a path for the water to get out. We can do that either on the surface or we can do that underground. But as you start to incorporate underground storm drainage systems, then you start to add the cost. It's all a matter of cost.
That's a break your leg little
Step.
inlet. Yeah, you just kind of.
In that particular area, it's a 6-inch curb drop on one side, so it's kind of like your standard curb, but then you have the planter that sticks up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it is such kind of, it's kind of misplaced or oddly placed
About just
everywhere.
with a grade.
Another idea, we could just put a grate on
Yeah,
top of it.
that's, yeah.
And we've talked about that too. Generally, just pushing the water in that direction is kind of what I'm looking at right now, but we can also set just a little grate right on top of it so that it becomes.
It's only about 12, 18 inches, right?
It's about 12 inches wide, I think.
Yeah.
It varies, but yeah, 12 to 18 inches wide.
And when it's right up against the planter, it's okay. But when it gets away from the planter,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
dangerous.
And when it gets away from the planter, and these are things that we kind of want to work through, but when it gets away from the planter, it starts to turn into like a driveway, but it's a driveway to nowhere, right? You've got kind of a little steep slope driveway deal. So the idea is that we can start to just work all of that completely out and even it all up through there.
So same thing here, you can see, here's the existing grade, how it kind of goes up and goes down and comes down, and here we're saying we're just gonna come straight down to a point and then go straight back up to the building across the street.
But no open area like that
That's correct.
exists.
Yeah,
It's gonna be flush, essentially.
Yeah, and this one, in this particular case, because we've got, and we can eliminate the open area or the little curb area on the other one also. We would just need to look at resetting all of those planters, because what's creating the other side of that drop is the backside of the planter. So if we start to if we decide we just want to tear out all those planters and reset them completely, then we can start to take all of that out.
That
I
sounds
think that was the
expensive.
plan.
We're looking, again,
Costs.
cost, you know, I mean, I'm
But yeah,
looking at what can we do, what we want to do, and then the value engineering side of things, right? So we can have those discussions. Those are some of the discussions we'd like to have as far as doing some of those things. And this is a section of San Agustin north of Iturbide. So as you're going north of Iturbide, now you have buildings on both sides, right? You have the House of Whiskey and that side, and then you have the west side, right?
Yes.
And so in that particular case, what's happening right now is the road has kind of a high point in the middle.
Right here.
It's a little more crowned in the middle, and the low points are the tree wells. And so when it rains, the tree wells tend to flood. And so the idea there is we want to take finished floor to finished floor essentially and just build kind of a low spot somewhere about the middle, and then the challenge there is to make sure that we can drain that out. We may need to add some drainage improvements there to help the water get out. But that's what we're looking at in this particular section.
So is that flat? That
Yeah, like this line goes,
from building to building?
it comes down and then goes back up.
Correct.
So the curb that's there now is
It's gone.
Will be
eliminated?
Yeah,
Will be
everything's gonna be walkable.
This particular section, the planters are not built up. They're actually flush with the road already.
With the-
Are those
there's-
trees alive right now?
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
So again, I think, like I said, this is somewhat easier than Santa Rosa Street. We'll just kind of finish with Iturbide. Now, Iturbide, there's the first 3 blocks, and then the last 2 blocks, it's really just minor improvements. You know, fix the sidewalks where the trees have uprooted the sidewalk, or, you know, there's cracks, you know. But along these first 3 blocks, you know, we've talked about expanding the sidewalk on, especially the section between Santa Ursula and San Bernardo, you know, expanding the sidewalk on the north side to 6 feet. Because right now there is no sidewalk on the north side.
Because there's a residential home and, or private home and a parking lot.
Correct, correct. And right now the sidewalk that's existing is probably 2 to 3 feet, if that. And so we're gonna redo that. On this block, we're redoing both sides of the street, because we just have to, it's very narrow. There's discussions on whether we keep the parking on the north or the south side. You know, we can still work through that. Right now, he's just showing it on the south side. But again, you know, we're really trying to, you know, conceptually of having the sidewalk and parking, and within those parking spaces, we can create these little bulb outs for trees or poles for the string lights or whatever we want to do. All that's going to be integrated, similar to what's in like you can kind of see here, you know, like there's some trees.
Is that the existing It Street the way it is?
Yeah, right here, you see, that's probably 2 feet right there.
Well, I'm talking about further west where the improvements have already been made, so it is very walkable.
Yes.
And the trees are in place.
Yes.
Will this mirror that?
Yes, it's gonna look very, very similar to that. It's just, we just need to decide where we wanna do that. Like the section between San Bernardo, I'm sorry, the section between San Agustin and Flores, where we have, once, the north side of the street has that huge canopy on it, and it's a very wide sidewalk already. Well, there, we may not do very many improvements. Maybe we do a couple of little bulb outs just to put some trees or something along that north side. The majority of the work will be on the south side of that street. So, but again, that same look of the other 2 blocks, we're just gonna bring that down all the way. And there's some alignment issues too, like in front of Siete Banderas, that sidewalk sticks out quite a bit, which is fine, that's what we want, but.
But that's high up, is it? And there's
Yeah,
a step down?
it is higher up, and we may rework some of that, you know, depending on how much funding we have left, but we are looking at all of those things. But again, I think it would be good to, Zaragoza's the one that we need to really kind of focus on, because I think all the other ones, we feel pretty comfortable that we can implement all of these original ideas.
That's very good progress.
Yeah, so, like I said, we're available to meet with you guys, walk it whenever y'all want. You can just send us an email and we'll be there.
I would like to walk with you on Zaragoza because it's one thing to see it there, but it's another to, and I know there's
Understood.
rationale for why you have to do what you do.
We'll bring our pencils and our papers, and if we need to stop and draw while we're there, we can do that.
And your creative thinking.
Yes, absolutely.
Always. Yes. So, Ms. Axon, do you know the neighbors there in that block? Or should we just get an official word out to them to come to a meeting related to these design?
It would be nice to, I mean, I know some of them. One of the representatives is, yeah, I know some of them. That would be nice if we could get kind of I'm not sure, maybe I'd like to go with people that are more connected instead of seeing it for the first time, right? Because seeing it for the first time is going to be a lot more questions.
Right.
And so maybe we could work through those.
So I guess that brings kind of the next point on the schedule is the public engagement portion of that. So, I think once we have that walk with you guys, I think we'll be ready, you know, probably, how long do you think it would be to generate some diagrams? A couple weeks, maybe?
You're saying after the walk?
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of weeks for sure.
To develop kind of the images. Right now, we're just sketching, right? But we'll work together to create like, well, this is what it's gonna look like. And I don't know if we're just putting it out just to the people, the owners on that street, or if we're putting it out to everybody,
It's
or,
gonna be to everybody, but if this requires more involvement, I mean, so be it, you know, that's required.
Yeah.
But I think if we get the initial walk with Ms. Alexander and whoever she would like to invite, maybe there's some sort of consensus over a design.
that's
know.
what we hope, actually. That's really what we need, is a
Correct, yeah.
consensus of,
Then we can go at a larger,
Yeah.
with the full public engagement process. That's my opinion.
I'm gonna look on Google Earth at, you know, at Bourbon Street, at the French Quarter in New Orleans. Because, you know, old cities have issues. And I wonder how many railings they have.
We'll
Look at that.
I'll do some research as well.
I just
Put our
picked
heads
that city
together.
out, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so you're basically saying you're a few weeks away from being 30%,
yeah, I think so,
which is our public engagement
Exactly.
trigger, right?
Right,
Which is great.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working a lot over the last few weeks, and
Yeah.
I think we're,
Well, do we want to pick a date to walk?
Yes, to walk.
And
And if
I'll-
it's more than three, we'll post it to comply with the requirements here.
I'll be at Mount Franklin.
What do you mean more than three?
More than three of us attending requires it to be posted.
Oh, really?
you wanna shoot maybe?
Makes a quorum,
Okay.
four makes a quorum.
Well, okay.
What, is next Thursday too,
That would be
soon?
the
Next
22nd.
Thursday.
The 22nd?
That, actually, we were just saying
Yeah.
that would be a date that would work
Okay.
for us.
What, would you prefer the morning, 7 o'clock?
I will say that walking in the morning is preferable.
Yes, I was gonna say.
7:30, we have coffee at La Posada?
We can certainly do that.
Let me see,
Yep.
next Thursday,
9.
7.
I'm available. I volunteer, I'll be
8
there.
o'clock.
All right.
Yeah,
available.
whatever time works best for you.
Eight
They're gonna
8:30?
send an invite, or
8:30?
Yeah, we'll get an invite and we'll post it.
You want me to post it as a
Yes,
walking
please.
quorum, the way we
Yes.
did it last time? Okay.
We can meet at La Posada and walk
Yeah.
from there?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Official meeting 8 o'clock, or 8:30, did we say?
Oh, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock's fine.
Say, if you want 8 o'clock at La Posada, then, or somewhere
And
close
then
by,
walk.
and we can,
Yeah.
everybody meet from there and then.
8 a.m.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll give us an opportunity to walk through the other block of Zaragoza too.
Yeah, well, that's the important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any additional input
That's
from
it.
you guys?
That's
Thank you very much for the progress you've made in the last 30 days. It's really nice to see the actual sections. As much as I know they're complicated, I know they are. I mean, you've got so many doorways and driveways and complicated job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So no action on that item. Before we adjourn, I may, besides this walkthrough, I may call one other meeting before, I won't be here for the October 13th schedule, so I would like to try to work with what the MPO is doing before I give you all the date, if that's okay, and then maybe hit a date over email, agree on a date over email. Does that work for you all? I think we'll be able to do that in the next couple of days. And maybe the city council is gonna meet October 3rd.
Our meeting is scheduled for October 11th.
11th is what I
Okay,
have.
so I'm gone pretty much that whole week.
Okay, so you want to schedule for the 18th?
Well, we need to bring back the item for the grant before the submission date, which is the 13th.
So in order for us to put something, you would need council. Is that what you're saying?
If it's the MPO, they don't need council. But if the MPO can't get it approved, then Mr. Mia's suggestion is that the city actually file it, right? So it would need to go to council on the
Or,
3rd.
so just to give you some dates for if something needs to be posted on council, it would have to be, the deadline is usually September 27th to submit normally.
Okay.
That's just to, if we had to put something on council.
So the 26th, maybe tentatively the 26th? I'm looking at.
You're saying to have a special meeting? Oh,
Yeah.
to, yeah, I would say.
Does that work for you all at this time?
That works for me.
Okay, September 26th.
So moving instead of, this would take over the scheduled meeting of October, right?
Yeah, well, we really are not gonna have much action because they're still working on design before they're ready for us to approve, but if,
Just a special meeting? Well, and so you want this to be a special meeting and still have the October meeting, or you're gonna cancel the,
cancel the October.
okay.
Why are we canceling? We still have updates on the website and
But
He's not
canceling the 11th, so we can have another October meeting,
on the 18th,
but not the 11th.
the 18th
Yeah.
or the 25th.
So September 26th, tentatively special meeting,
28th,
26.
right?
on a Wednesday?
It's a Monday.
Oh, that's a Monday. At what time?
What time works for you all?
Oh, that's September.
Does during the day work better for you all, during the workday?
Yes. No, not for Carol.
I mean, anytime's fine. It's not gonna be very long. right?
Lunch?
Yeah.
I mean, y'all can
Whatever's
do
fine.
special council, I mean, since it's a special meeting, we can do lunch. I would just need to check availability of the room, but if not, we'll find a room, yeah.
So
Yeah, lunch is good.
12 PM, okay,
Oh,
That was the 26th.
yes. And if something happens with the MPO that they're proceeding, then we may not need that.
okay.
All right.
And
Anything?
the October one, you wanna leave it as is right now, or?
We can set it now if the board wants to do that. I would say, let's wait until we
Wait,
walk
okay.
and then figure out if we actually have some good progress, is given some time to work through that.
Okay.
We can
But
set
I'm
it on
gonna
the,
I'm gonna cancel the October
Yes.
11th one, right?
okay. Anything else? Any other business? All right, not, there being none, make a motion, we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Then seconded by Mr. Castillo. It's 3:59. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? None, motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good progress.